There were some alternatives to the way in which Machiavelli thought about politics in the time period of the Renaissance around the year 1500. Referenced earlier in the conversation about him was that there were other visions, that there was the idea of a Christian prince. There was this idea that a prince could apply some of the very simple principles and ideas of Christianity to improve not only his or her own world, but the world of the people around him and their subjects. One of the people who had that basic idea of thought is a man named Erasmus of Rotterdam. And this is a quick portrait of him. He was a very serious scholar from what you know as the modern-day Netherlands. He spent a lot of his career traveling around in Northern Europe, and he's representative of this movement called the Northern Christian Humanism, where the idea was that you could use many of the principles of Christianity, combine them with many of the ideas of the Renaissance about the power of man, and find a way to create a better, more harmonious world. So Erasmus is very sincere in his effort to try and find a way to sort of reconcile some of the major problems of the world. How much Christianity can be used to create a better world, and at what point is that somehow not applicable or not useful? All right. So with Erasmus, we want to talk about a couple of things. He was the representative of this idea, like I said, of Christian humanism. It was sort of a philosophy of life. It was an active effort, and there's many people in Northern Europe who are applying deeper understandings of their faith to their daily lives. They're not, many of them are not going off and can't go off and join formally the Roman Catholic Church in a monastic male or female capacity, but they are very much interested in finding ways of what's called the devotio moderna, the modern devotion, trying to have a Christian-focused life. It's a very powerful influence amongst many groups, and they set themselves up in many cities, especially in Northern Europe, as a way of sort of like almost lay members of the Catholic Church, people who are very devoted to what they wish to do, very devout people, but they also are not formally part of the full church, having taken full orders. So it's sort of a halfway house between the idea of a religious life and a realistic life. Erasmus in many ways speaks to those kind of people. They're very serious about what they want to do. They're very serious about their Christianity and their societies, and they want to find a way to bring that sort of philosophy of life to fruition. They want to live their faith in some way. Now, what also is interesting is that as Erasmus is going through, and many other people are doing this in Europe as well, there had been, remember, at the end of the Papal Schism, when it had finally been healed in 1415, and all the authority of the Roman Catholic Pope had been restored under Martin V, and he'd gone to live in Rome, all right? There had been at that time an idea that was called conciliarism. And the idea was that the embarrassment of the church at that time period had part been based on human issues, where there are too many egos in the room, so to speak, and the alternative was maybe the best way to run the church would be if it was like a giant congress, right? Where hundreds of people would come together in the council movement, and the Christian movement has had lots of councils over time. The Council of Nicaea back in the 4th century, the Fourth Lateran Council in 1215 under Innocent III. Famous councils where many, many people had come together sincerely trying to figure out the best motives and how they could do things in Christianity and make it better. Better practices, improve the law, improve theology. In that context then, many people in the conciliar movement of the time period wanted to have that same thing continue, that the real guiding influence in the church is many, many people bringing their brains, their interests, and their sincerity, and not just having one pope, one essential dictator of the church, in essence, in the West, have multiple people, multiple heads, instead of just one sort of dictator type thing. That was a tricky situation for many people to deal with, but here's how Erasmus was going to deal with it. He took a look at the idea of many of the people like himself who were very sincerely devoted to Christianity, and how there's sort of a disconnect between the lives of some of the bishops of Rome and the way common people lived. It's quite open knowledge amongst many people that several of the people at the higher echelons of the Roman Catholic Church, as well as royal families, are not exactly true to their word. They don't exactly stay faithful, and that there's lots of human behavior that is unacceptable. But the idea here is not to criticize those people for their misbehaviors. It is to take those misbehaviors out of the church as much as possible and staff it with people who really want to be there, who are sincere, and will follow up on the needs and the ideas of many of the earlier movements in the Christian movement, right? The rule of St. Benedict from Italy, where there was an organized structure for monastic communities, or even the foundations of things later on like the Cistercian movement, or you may have also read about the rise of groups like the Dominicans and the Franciscans in the 13th century. People devoted to service in the church who go into the streets, who go out amongst the people and work with the Christian community, do not live in cloistered environments behind the closed walls, sort of like some of the other religious groups earlier, Cistercians and others like that. But the idea here is that he is serious, he wants to find a way to do this, and here's the disconnect he sees. He writes a book, it's a short one, called In Praise of Folly. And the title is kind of strange, but here's the idea. Many famous chapters of this focus on the idea of some of the monastics who live in a cloistered environment, who live behind closed walls, and the kind of life they lead. And it's a life of routine, it's a life of rote memorization, it is an undeviating kind of life that in many ways is sort of just like, painting by number, right? That there's no originality here, and there's a lot of structure, and what you do is you just live within the structure. And at no point, and this is the thing that really bothers Erasmus, what about belief? What about actual belief in the Christian movement and in the idea of Jesus and the idea of divinity? I mean, going to and living in a cloistered community as a monk, yes, you might have a structured day. Yes, you might live up to the rules about how many calories you can take or how your clothes should be made or how many pairs of shoes you could have. Many of those things had been regulated by the different communities through different monastic rules. Erasmus is like, wait a second, what about belief? What about real, genuine faith? It may look like they are faithful, but that can be deceiving. Looks can be deceiving. He wants to address the idea of faith and not the idea of external structure. So he's going to be one of the people, and there will be many to come, who are going to look at that simple dichotomy, that simple divergence between it looks like you as a nun or monk are religious, and you have the structure, and you wear the clothing, and you behave like you're supposed to in public, but are you really, truly faithful? Are you really, truly faithful? And that's one of the questions that Erasmus wants to work with. Now, as a classical scholar, he will be, of course, involved in taking a look at, in the movement of the Renaissance, the idea of making sure that we have the proper texts. So he's going to revisit the Vulgate Bible. Remember, St. Jerome had put together what was called the official Latin version of the Bible, the Vulgate, back in the 5th century. And in many ways, that same Bible had been used and recopied for several centuries. Erasmus and other scholars have gone back into that document and found some oddities of translation, and they want to go back and clean those up. They want to fix those. Instead of letting the errors sort of stand, they have applied their brain and want to go back and do this. This is all part of the idea of reform. It's not about destruction. It's not about destroying the church as it functions. It's about fine-tuning it, and it is about making sure that there's a clarity of vision. It's about reform, not about destruction. But there will be others who will take a look at the same things that Erasmus and his friends are doing in the humanistic movement and saying, listen, is this thing so broken, meaning the church, that it needs to be fixed? Do we need to totally fix the thing, or can we tinker with it? That will be one of the arguments as we go into the Reformation era. Is this institution, the Roman Catholic Church in Western Europe, in need of some fine-tuning and some tinkering? Or is it in need of some whole-scale changes, some large-scale changes? And that will be one of the lines of argument that will emerge soon. Erasmus, in time, will stay on the side of the people who believe in tinkering and altering for the better. There will be others who are going to come along and say the church needs to be totally restructured. Take a closer look at the ideas of classicism and Northern humanism, especially the career of Erasmus, in your reading, and then take a look and see if there are some sample questions that can help you understand this time period.